I showed up at Ellison's with that strange hope you can't quite explain, the kind that clings to your chest, even when logic tells you to let go. Friday, 7:00 p.m. private dining room. The reservation was in my name, just like the deposit, just like everything else. I parked and looked around. No familiar cars. No sound of Rachel's awkward laugh or Uncle Mark's voice booming through the lot. Just stillness, clean asphalt and the low hum of streetlights. I checked the message again. Still said what I remembered. Can't wait to see everyone. Friday at 7, Ellison's. Mum sent that 2 weeks ago. No edits, no confusion. I was on time. Like always. Inside, the air was cool and clean, with a faint note of bergamot and wine, clinking glasses, soft jazz. The restaurant was alive, just not for me. The private room, the one I'd paid extra for, locked, dim, silent. A young hostess looked up, barely glancing from her screen. Can I help you? Yes. Harper party. Private room. She scanned, paused. Oh, that was last night. I blinked. Sorry, what? 16 people, she nodded. Big cake, place cards. Your mother brought in custom decorations. They had the room Thursday. No Harper party tonight. I couldn't speak. My laugh came before I could stop it, sharp, brittle, the kind that dies in your throat before it fully escapes. No, I said softly. It was supposed to be tonight. She tilted her head, all customer service pity. Maybe check with your guests. I was already dialing. 2 rings. Then her voice. Hi, sweetheart, Mum chirped. Too light, too bright. Where is everyone? Silence. Then that little breathy chuckle she uses when she's guilty but pretending not to be. Oh, honey. It was yesterday. We thought you weren't coming. But don't worry, we saved you leftovers. Leftovers. I hung up. Not a single callback. Not a single, are you okay? Not even a shrug from Jason. They knew. They just didn't care. You'd think missing a dinner you paid for would be the worst part. It wasn't. It was just the final confirmation. The cherry on top of a 5-year pattern so neatly disguised in smiles and soft apologies that I almost believed I was imagining it. Jason was always the one who just needed a little help getting on his feet. That's how Mum framed it. And me? I was the one who didn't need much. I was the stable one. The invisible anchor expected to hold the weight without asking for anything in return. I still remember the first time I got a real promotion. I called Mum, glowing with pride, imagining she'd be thrilled. She paused, then said, That's wonderful, Emily. Maybe now you can help your brother out with his car payments. He's been so stressed lately. No congratulations. Just another invoice in disguise. That one-time payment became routine. Jason's car turned into his credit cards. Then rent. Then the accidental overdrafts. A new laptop for his graphic design business, which, by the way, never existed beyond an Instagram bio. And I paid, not because I had to, but because I believed that's what love looked like in our family. Turns out, in my family, love was a one-way transaction. And I was the only one with a balance due. Every time I hesitated, I was met with the same emotional sledgehammer. He's going through a rough time, Emily. Why are you being so cold? Jason's sensitive. You're doing better than him. Why are you keeping score? But I wasn't keeping score. I was bleeding out quietly, hoping anyone would notice. I remember one night, about 2 years ago, I wired $800 to cover one of Jason's rent emergencies. Later that same evening, he posted a story of him on a rooftop bar, champagne in hand, tagged at a trendy sushi place, grinning like he didn't owe me a cent. I showed it to Mum. She shrugged. You know your brother. He needs to feel normal. You girls always get so emotional about money. Girls, plural, like Rachel, our cousin who barely spoke but always paid her share. Like me, who was apparently too emotional for expecting accountability, and still I stayed, I gave, I forgave, until forgiveness became a habit I couldn't afford. Last Christmas, the first maxed out my savings for personalised gifts. And what did I get? A framed family photo. I wasn't in it. I didn't go home that night. After the call with Mom, the leftovers call, I just sat in my car outside Ellison's. The lights inside glowed gold behind the frosted glass. Diners laughing over wine and clinking forks. It was warm in there, human, inviting, but not for me. I sat still, not crying, not breathing hard, just still. That kind of stillness that creeps in after a breaking point, quiet, calm, detached. I stared at my reflection in the windshield, not angry, not sad, just calculating. They made a choice, all of them, together. And tomorrow I'd make mine. That dinner cost me $1740. $60 per person, appetizers, a custom vegan menu for Jason, a nut-free cake for Uncle Mark, wine for Mum's allergy, even though we both know she just doesn't like reds. Every request, every detail met with a smile from me and a swipe of my card, and not one of them thought to tell me they moved the date. Not a single word. They planned it behind my back and sat in that room, ate my food, toasted each other, laughed, and told themselves I was too busy or too dramatic or better off. So I didn't yell. I didn't storm into the group chat or fire off texts. I sat there in that car, made a list, pulled out my phone, and started compiling receipts, bank transfers, Venmo screenshots, every wire, every favor, every dollar. It wasn't revenge I wanted. It was reality. I needed them to see, in black and white, what they had been ignoring for years. The next morning, I sent one message to the family group chat. Emily, let's meet at Mom's tonight. 7:00 p.m. I have something for you. No one asked what. Of course, they didn't. No one ever asked anything when it came to me. At 6:58 p.m., I pulled into the driveway. The house was lit up. Rachel was parked out front, an unexpected presence, and I felt a flicker of uncertainty. She hadn't responded to the group text, but she was here. Inside, I heard them before I saw them. Jason was laughing at something on his phone. Mum was fluffing pillows with that frantic energy she only got when she knew something wasn't quite right, but didn't want to face it. Frank sat reclined in his chair, beer in hand, the picture of indifference. They looked up when I entered, and Mom gave me that practiced smile. Hi, honey. We weren't sure you'd still be upset. I said nothing. Jason looked up, all mock concern. Come on, don't be like this. It was just easier for everyone to do Thursday. Most of us have jobs, you know. He said that with a straight face. As if I didn't work. As if I hadn't covered his rent during his freelance months, 6 of them. I reached into my bag and pulled out a large envelope. Placed it gently on the coffee table. What's this? Mum asked, already wary. I sat down, calm, measured. It's a bill, I said. Frank snorted. A bill? You serious? For the dinner? The one you all enjoyed without me? Jason barked a laugh. Oh, come on! That's rich. What? Now you want us to Venmo you for a meal? No, I said. I'm giving you an opportunity. From now on, anything you want from me, money, time, help comes with an invoice. Silence. It was delicious. Mum narrowed her eyes. Are you seriously trying to guilt us over one dinner? I leaned forward. No, I'm setting a boundary over 5 years of financial bleeding. Jason rolled his eyes. No one made you pay for anything. That was it. Something inside me finally broke, but not loudly, not with screaming. It was quieter, more dangerous. I stood. You know what? Fine. Let's talk about what no one made me do. I turned to Jason. I wasn't made to cover your rent for 2 years, or your overdrafts, or your laptop, or your trip to Mexico with that girl you swore was just a friend. He looked like he'd been slapped. I turned to Mum. I wasn't made to cover your property taxes when you forgot, and the county sent a lien notice, or your birthday cruise when Dad claimed he forgot to book anything, or groceries when your knee suddenly gave out every time it was your turn. Frank sat up. You need to watch your tone. Oh, I'm just getting started. I pulled out a folded document from my pocket. You see this? It's every single transaction. Bank transfers, emails, Venmo, screenshots, all organized, dated, categorized. Jason scoffed. Jesus, you're insane. No, I said, calm and clear. I'm protected. Because I filed a fraud report this morning, the room stopped breathing. Mum blinked. What? Last week, I found out someone opened a credit card in my name, I said, tapping the folder. It was used for an iPhone and a spa package. Jason posted about it on Instagram, said it was a gift from a friend. Jason's face drained of colour. I called the credit company. It's under investigation now. The address tied to the charges. I looked at Mum. Yours. Jason stood up. You're kidding me. No, I said. And if you think I won't press charges, I suggest you reread the policy agreement. The explosion came right on cue. You're pathetic, Jason shouted. You'd send your own brother to jail? Mum gasped. I'm done being your safety net, I said. You don't get to guilt me into silence anymore. Tears welled in Mum's eyes. You're tearing this family apart. No, I said, stepping back toward the door. I'm just stepping out of the mess you kept sweeping under the rug. And then something unexpected happened. Rachel, who hadn't spoken a word the whole time, stood up. I'd like to pay my share, she said softly. Everyone turned to her. For the dinner, she clarified. It's only fair. And I knew. I didn't speak up. I'm sorry. I looked at her, and for the first time that night, I smiled. Thank you, I said. That means more than you know. And with that, I walked out the door, folder in hand, lungs full of air I hadn't felt in years. The silence afterward wasn't peaceful. It was seismic, the kind of silence that comes when a foundation shifts and all the weight above it starts to tremble. I drove home without music, windows up, hands steady, no rage, no tears. I wasn't crumbling. I was bracing for the collapse. At 8:17 a.m. the next morning, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Is this Emily Harper? A calm voice asked. This is Officer Reynolds from the Financial Crimes Division. We're following up on a credit fraud report you filed involving charges made under your name. Yes, I said, voice level. We've confirmed the purchases and billing address. We'll be visiting the residence today for a formal statement. You don't need to be present. You've done your part. I thanked him and hung up. I thought I'd feel relief, closure. But all I felt was stillness again. It wasn't vengeance. It wasn't even justice. It was oxygen. Later that afternoon, I got the voicemail. Mum's voice, strained and furious, nearly cracked the phone speaker. Emily, how dare you send the police to our house? I was in my robe. Jason was trying to get to work. What the hell do you think you're doing? What I was doing? I was holding them accountable. Something no one in that house had done before. Apparently, the officers arrived at 7:45 a.m., polite, professional, and direct. We're following up on a report of identity theft, they'd said. Charges were made using your daughter's name and linked to this address. Jason tried to walk out, claimed he was late. The officers asked him to stay. He cracked within minutes. It wasn't fraud, he reportedly said. She always helps. I thought she wouldn't care. Care? He used my name, opened a card and spent thousands for a phone, for a spa day, for status. And still believed I wouldn't mind. Mum jumped in. He's under pressure. He didn't mean it. But it was already too late. They asked to see Jason's phone. He handed it over. And there it was. A text message to his friend, clear as crystal, used my sis's info for the spa. She won't notice. Girl's a doormat. Not just fraud, premeditated. That same evening, I got a call from the assigned detective. We have enough to press formal charges, he said. I didn't answer right away. I just stared at the folder, still sitting on my kitchen table, my entire relationship with my family documented in transactions and silence. I need a day, I said finally. He agreed, but reminded me it won't go away, it just waits. By nightfall, the messages started piling in. 27 missed calls, 41 texts. Mum, Emily, please. Jason didn't mean it. Dad Frank, you'd ruin your own brother's life over this. Jason, you're disgusting. You're not even family. And then the guilt missiles. Mom, again, I raised you better than this. We're not perfect, but this is your family. The thing is, I wasn't trying to ruin anyone's life. I was just done sacrificing mine to keep their illusion intact. I gave it one day. Then I called the detective. Can we hold off on charges for now? He agreed, but made a note in the system. If he uses your name again, we move forward. That should have been the end. But Mum had one more card to play. She called me 2 days later, her voice soft, sweet, like a blade wrapped in velvet. Come by the house, she said. Let's talk, face to face, like a family. Against every ounce of logic, I agreed. I told myself it was closure, that maybe this time they'd mean it. Big mistake. I walked into the living room and immediately knew what this was. A performance. Jason was curled on the couch under a blanket like a wounded animal. Mum had her worried mother expression perfected to an art. Frank didn't even look up. We just want to fix this, Mum said. We, I asked. Or you. She ignored that. This is tearing us apart, Emily. You're hurt, we know. But pressing charges, I didn't press anything, I said. I waited. I gave you a chance. Jason sat up, voice cracking with faux innocence. I didn't think you'd actually go to the cops. You always help. Not anymore, I said. Mum reached for my hand. Let's make this disappear. We'll pay back the charges. We'll move forward. Funny, I said. You didn't offer that before the officers showed up. She pulled back like I'd burned her. Frank finally spoke, eyes cold. You think this makes you a saint? You think you're so righteous? No, I said. It makes me free. That was the last thing I said to them in that house. A week later, I got a call. The detective spoke plainly. We received a payment marked anonymous, but it came from a joint account in your parents' names. Do you still wish to press charges? I thought for a long time. The silence on the other end wasn't empty. It was space, the kind I hadn't been allowed to breathe in for years. No, I said, not this time. But I want it on record. If my name is used again, I won't hesitate, he confirmed. We hung up, and just like that it was done, not forgiven, not forgotten, just closed. I didn't send birthday messages that year, didn't visit for Christmas. The first moved out of state 2 weeks later. Quiet town, low rent, a little sunlit apartment where my name was on everything but not on anyone else's lips, wallets, or excuses. I spent my weekends unlearning what I thought love looked like. Turns out, love doesn't sound like you're overreacting. It sounds like silence that doesn't sting. Peace didn't arrive like a sunrise. It came more like snowfall quiet, slow, almost unnoticed, until one day I looked up and realized the world had changed. I moved to a small town just outside Asheville. Trees, winding roads, a coffee shop where the barista remembers your name after the second visit. I found a one-bedroom unit above a florist's shop. The windows creaked in the wind and the plumbing was old, but it was mine, completely, utterly mine. I spent my first weekend assembling flat-pack furniture while an old jazz playlist played in the background. I bought groceries that no one else would borrow. I left my phone on silent and didn't flinch when it buzzed, because now no one in my contact list used guilt as a ringtone. And for the first time in over a decade, I woke up to stillness that didn't demand anything from me. No emergency texts, no sly requests, no "can you help?" wrapped in "you're selfish if you don't." Just coffee, a soft blanket, and a silence that felt like air, not absence. Then, 3 weeks after I left it all behind, a letter arrived. No return address. Inside, a folded piece of stationery and a check. The note was written in neat, looping handwriting. "I don't expect you to forgive me, but thank you for doing what I never had the courage to, Rachel." The check was made out for $870, exactly half of the Ellisons' dinner bill. I stared at it for a long time. She didn't owe me anything, but she got it. She saw it for what it was, not a meal, but a marker. The moment everything shifted, I deposited the check. Not because I needed the money, but because accepting it felt like something bigger than closure. It felt like acknowledgement. The rest of them, I never heard from them again. Not for my birthday. Not for Christmas. Not even when Frank had surgery later that year. I only found out because Aunt Carolyn posted something vague and dramatic on Facebook. I scrolled past it. And you know what? Good. They finally learned what it was like to live without me. And I finally learned how to live without them. People say blood is thicker than water. But the full quote, "the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb," has always hit different. Turns out, chosen loyalty is stronger than shared DNA. It took me 32 years to understand that. The last time I saw any of their faces was the night I walked out of that living room with the folder in my hand and the last of my fear burned out behind my eyes. Since then, silence. And that silence. It used to feel like punishment. Now it feels like freedom. A few weeks ago, I ran into someone from high school. I was at the hardware store, balancing light bulbs and a plant stand, when she tapped me on the shoulder. "Emily," she said. "Didn't you used to be Jason's sister?" I paused, thought about it, smiled. "No," I said, "not anymore." And just like that, no shame, no explanation, because I wasn't Jason's sister. I wasn't the financial safety net. I wasn't the fixer. I wasn't the girl who turned her bank account into a family lifeline. I was just me. And for once, that was enough. They thought I wouldn't survive without them, that I'd come crawling back, that I needed their love, whatever version of it they kept behind conditional walls and emotional fine print. They were wrong. I don't need Sunday dinners that double as silent tests. I don't need check-ins disguised as guilt trips. I don't need to be forgiven for walking away from people who never noticed they were stepping all over me. Let them keep their group texts, their family photos with me photoshopped out, their recycled lies. Let them whisper about me at reunions I won't attend. Let them wonder who I've become, because deep down, they know. They know they pushed me out, and for once I didn't beg to come back. You want to know the best part? They lost their power the moment I stopped asking for love and started demanding respect. Because people like that, they'll throw family at you like a weapon. But the second you throw back boundaries, they call you broken. I'm not broken. I'm just no longer theirs. And Jason? He didn't lose his job. He didn't go to jail, but he lost something else, his mask. Rachel told me later quietly, over a phone call that neither of us recorded, that Jason's reputation tanked after the investigation. Mum tried to downplay it, of course. It was all a misunderstanding, she said at every brunch. But word got around. Fast. No one lets him handle finances anymore. Aunt Carolyn changed her will. Uncle Steve told Rachel, he's not the kind of person you loan anything to. Funny how the truth works. It doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just leaks quietly, consistently, until it's soaked into every conversation they try to avoid. I didn't win. There was no dramatic music, no courtroom, no Instagram post that went viral. I just walked away. And this time, I didn't look back. I planted basil on my windowsill. I started sketching again. I baked a lemon tart on a random Tuesday, just because I felt like sweetness didn't need an occasion. I am not waiting to be forgiven anymore. I am not holding my breath for apologies that never come. I am not explaining why I left to people who watched me drown and said, "Why are you making it about yourself?" They can spin their stories. I'll keep mine rooted in truth. Because when they shut that door on me, I didn't lose a family. They lost me. And that's the first bill they'll never be able to pay. Story 2, they went to Hawaii, left me behind, but not alone. I'm Maya, 29, and at one point, I thought I had my life figured out. Stable marriage, decent in-laws, nothing out of a drama series. That illusion cracked fast. It all started when my husband, Darren, casually informed me that his family had planned a vacation to Hawaii. Not we, just they. Him, his parents, and his half-sister Celia. And me? I was assigned to stay behind and care for Celia, who supposedly was bedridden and non-verbal. His exact words, "It's your responsibility, don't slack off." I was too stunned to even argue. They were already halfway out the door before I could process the absurdity. His mother, always so sweet to Darren and cold to me, shot me a look like I'd just been handed a company car instead of, being volunteered to care for someone they described as medically dependent. But here's the kicker. The second they left and I turned back toward Celia's room, I heard her voice, her actual voice, from behind me. "Let's get going." I nearly dropped my phone. Celia, the woman I'd been told couldn't speak, couldn't move, sat up straight, stretched her arms, and flashed a mischievous grin, like this was some kind of buddy road trip movie. "Wait, what?" was all I managed. She laughed. "I can walk." And talk. Surprise. Turns out Celia wasn't Darren's full sister. Different dads. Her mum remarried, and from what I learned over the next hour, never treated Celia like a real daughter. She had faked being mute and bedridden for over a year, just to avoid being dragged into her stepmother's toxic circle. Honestly, respect. We'd always gotten along. I learned basic sign language just to chat with her, and she was the only one in Darren's family who treated me like more than an inconvenience. Still, this was a massive reveal. What now? I asked, already suspicious there was more coming. Celia leaned in. "Now? We go to Hawaii too. A different kind of boarding pass. I'll give her this." She was ready. Passport, tickets, and accommodations already handled. Her dad, the good parent, had funded the whole thing, including a flight and hotel suite for me. Apparently, he'd been planning this for a while, not for revenge, but as a kind of rescue mission. We flew out just hours after the rest of the family. Different airline, same destination, and yes, same resort. I spent the flight still trying to wrap my head around how easily I'd been dismissed. Darren didn't even flinch leaving me behind. His mother made it seem like I was the help, and they dumped Celia, who they thought was immobile, without so much as a guilt trip. Just take care of her. If anything happens, it's on you. If I hadn't seen Celia hop out of bed like she was in a musical number, I might have cried. But now I was sipping guava juice and plotting with the best co-conspirator I never asked for. We landed in Honolulu and checked into the resort early in the morning. The weather was perfect. The room had an ocean view, and for the first time in months, I felt a little bit like myself again. "Tonight's the night," Celia said as we unpacked. "For what?" "Our surprise entrance, secrets served hot, around 7 p.m. I walked down to the resort restaurant first. Reconnaissance, Celia called it. I didn't even need to sneak around for long. There they were. Darren, his mom, his dad, and some woman, young, pretty, unfamiliar. I stood behind a decorative column and strained to hear. What I caught made my stomach turn. "I'm glad she's not here," his mum said. "She just doesn't fit with our family. I'm working on divorcing her," Darren added. "She's not worth the trouble. But I'll get something out of it, trust me." I froze. "Divorce?" And even if there's no reason, his mum chimed in. "We'll make one. We can say she was negligent with Celia." That was the moment I stopped feeling shocked. I felt done. These people were carving me out of their lives like a bad tattoo while sipping $30 cocktails at a beach resort. I slipped away and went back to the room. Celia was already dressed for dinner, looking like a whole reveal moment. "They're there," I said, my voice hollow. And he brought someone. Her face hardened. "You ready? More than ever." The reveal, we walked into the restaurant like it was our runway. Heads turned. Darren choked on his drink. His mum dropped her fork. Celia, previously mute and wheelchair-bound in their eyes, walked right up to the table in heels and a sundress, like a damn miracle. Me? I stood beside her, calm and collected, heart thudding but head held high. "What are you doing here?" Darren's mum hissed. Celia smiled sweetly, walking, talking, surprised. "You could have heard a crab drop, you've been lying." Darren's voice cracked. Celia shrugged, or maybe I was surviving. "Anyway, you're not the only ones who can take a vacation." They were scrambling for words. His mum turned pale. Darren stammered. "This isn't what it looks like." "Oh, you mean bringing another woman on a trip while planning my divorce behind my back?" I cut in, because I have a recording if anyone's confused. He went red, then white. The woman beside him looked like she wanted to crawl under the table. "We can talk about this privately," he tried. "We will," I replied. In front of a lawyer, Celia raised her glass. "To fresh starts." After that restaurant showdown, I thought I'd feel triumphant. But mostly, I just felt tired. We left before dessert, heads held high, while Darren was still sputtering excuses, and his mum clung to her wine glass like it could reverse time. The look on their faces was satisfying, sure, but underneath the adrenaline, I felt the weight of everything I'd been ignoring for way too long. Back in the room, Celia collapsed on the bed, laughing. 10 out of 10, she said. "You looked like you were born to shut him down." I smiled, but it didn't quite reach my eyes. "Do you think I overdid it?" I asked. I didn't expect to say that out loud, but it slipped out anyway. Celia sat up, serious again. "Maya, they abandoned me, lied to you, planned your divorce behind your back, and you still showed more restraint than I ever could." Fair point. We didn't talk much after that. Both of us needed quiet. I lay awake most of the night, staring at the ceiling fan spinning slowly above me, thinking about everything. The way Darren used to hold my hand like he meant it. How his mom always called me Molly instead of Maya, like it was too much trouble to remember my name. And how I kept making excuses for people who didn't make space for me. That was the night I stopped doing that. paperwork and people who actually show up the next morning. I messaged an old college friend who worked at a law firm back home. I didn't even start with a hi, just sent, "Do you handle divorce cases?" He replied within minutes, "I don't, but I'll connect you with someone in our office who does. She's good." I didn't even know what I needed yet. I just knew I couldn't go back to being someone's background character in my own life. Celia and I spent the rest of our trip enjoying the island. And I mean, actually enjoying it, not the Instagram version, but the real kind. Like lying on a beach in hoodies after it rained, eating pineapple chunks out of a plastic container, or taking selfies with chickens that wandered into the resort lobby. We laughed, we talked. We were quiet sometimes too, which I appreciated more than anything. I didn't have to perform with her. I could just be. One night, over a dinner of poke bowls and guava soda, Celia said something I'll never forget. "You know what's wild?" she asked. For someone they treated like a burden, I've never felt lighter than I do now. And somehow, I knew exactly what she meant. Back to reality and the mess they left behind. We got back home a week later, jet-lagged, a little sunburned, but different. First thing I did was go to the law firm. My friend's colleague, a sharp, kind woman named Rachel, listened as I explained everything. The fake vacation invitation, the audio recording, the other woman, all of it. She nodded slowly, like she'd seen this kind of thing too many times. "We'll start the paperwork right away," she said. "Based on what you've told me, you're entitled to alimony and possibly damages, depending on what we dig up about the woman he brought to Hawaii." That woman, I still didn't know her name. Didn't care to. Rachel filed the first set of documents within a week. I didn't tell Darren. I didn't need to. He found out when he got served. He texted me that night, "You didn't have to do it like this." I stared at the screen for a while, then typed back, "You're right. I should have done it sooner." Blocked him after that. Digging up dirt and finding gold instead, a few weeks passed. Rachel called me on a Thursday, just as I was leaving work. Yeah, I'd gone back to the office. I needed something of my own again, even if it was just a desk and a nameplate. She said, "We found proof Darren's been with that woman for at least 6 months. He used your joint account to pay for some of their trips." I didn't even flinch. I just said, "Let's go after both of them." She laughed. "I was hoping you'd say that. We filed for alimony from Darren and compensation from the woman. It wasn't about the money, really. It was about principle. They didn't just cheat on me, they tried to erase me, but karma has a thing for receipts. And I had plenty. While the case moved forward, I focused on myself for the first time in forever. I started hiking again, took a solo weekend trip to Santa Fe just because I wanted to see the desert. Celia and I FaceTimed all the time, sometimes talking for hours, sometimes just watching a movie in silence, like we were still sharing that hotel room. And then, the knock. It was almost 2 months to the day since we returned from Hawaii when I heard a knock on my door. I opened it halfway and immediately regretted not just peeking through the peephole. Darren. Behind him? His mother. Both of them looked different, smaller, not physically, but like life had drained something out of them. Darren's voice cracked when he spoke. "Maya, please. I lost my job." "The girl," she left. "I don't even have enough to cover rent." His mother stepped forward, looking more fragile than I'd ever seen her. I'd divorced his father. Everything fell apart. "Please. Can you help us, just a little?" I blinked. Once, twice. Then, very calmly, I said, "No." They both looked stunned. Like that one word was a foreign language. "I have no obligation to either of you," I continued. "And even if I did, I wouldn't." I shut the door, didn't slam it, just closed it gently. Final. Cleansing and closure, the first stood in the hallway for a moment, breathing. Then I walked to the kitchen, grabbed the biggest jar of salt I had, and sprinkled it across the threshold like I was sealing the space against bad energy. It felt ceremonial. Silly, maybe, but powerful. Because this wasn't just about Darren or his mother or some fake family trip to Hawaii. This was about me choosing not to be convenient anymore. I was no one's afterthought, no one's caretaker, no one's backup plan. That night, I lit a candle, took a hot shower, slept with the windows open. Peace, I learned, doesn't always show up with a bang. Sometimes it's just the sound of silence after a door finally closes. A month after Darren showed up begging on my doorstep, I got the call. It was Rachel, my lawyer. She didn't waste time. It's done. The divorce is finalized. And the funds have been deposited. I didn't even ask how much. I just said, thanks. Then I sat on the couch, stared out the window for a long time and let it settle in. Not the money, the fact that it was over. The marriage, the lies, the pretending. Done. Later that night, I checked my account. The total made me raise an eyebrow. Between Darren's alimony and compensation from his girlfriend, or ex-girlfriend, I guess, it was more than I'd expected. I muttered under my breath, guess I was the bad lottery ticket, and laughed. For real, this time, the real wealth, but the money wasn't the reward. It wasn't even close. What changed me, what saved me, was me. Getting out of that house, getting back to myself, and finding peace in the quiet. Celia helped too, in ways I'll never be able to repay. She gave me space when I needed it, but always showed up when it mattered. No speeches, no lectures, just presence. We started a new routine. Saturday night calls, Sunday morning voice notes. Random texts like this reminded me of you with a meme or an ocean photo. She even started walking in the park near her house every evening. Said it helps her breathe deeper. One day I asked her if she ever planned on telling her mum the full truth about faking her condition, the Hawaii trip, everything. She just shrugged. She wouldn't hear it anyway. That's the thing with people like that. They only hear what fits their version of the world. Celia didn't need revenge. She just needed her life back. So did I. Unexpected visitors. Part 2, about 3 months later, I got another visit, but this time it was someone I actually wanted to see. Celia showed up with 2 iced coffees and a duffel bag. Thought you could use some company, she said. I always can. We spent the weekend doing absolutely nothing, which was exactly what I needed. Lazy brunches, baking cookies we didn't even finish, binge watching documentaries and trash TV in equal measure. Sunday night, she sat cross-legged on the floor, thumbing through a stack of old journals I'd forgotten I had. You've always been like this, she said, flipping a page. You give people too much credit. I used to think that was a strength, I admitted. Maybe it is. But you also have to know when to stop, she paused, then added softly. And you finally did. One last thing before she left. She handed me an envelope. Something Dad asked me to give you. Inside was a handwritten letter. From her father, Darren's stepdad. It was short, neat, formal in that old-school businessman kind of way. Maya, I don't know what my wife and stepson told you about me, but I watched how they treated you. I watched how you stayed kind even when you shouldn't have had to. You were never the problem. Thank you for being there for Celia. I hope this helps you build whatever life you choose next. Raymond folded inside the letter was a check. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I put it back in the envelope and slid it into a drawer. I didn't need it. I had everything I needed already. But I kept it anyway, not for the money, but as a reminder that not all people in that family were cruel. That maybe Some people did see me after all. A new chapter, quietly, this time. These days, I keep things simple. I moved to a smaller place, closer to the coast. Got a job at a non-profit doing community planning. Something that actually feels useful. I walk to work, grow herbs on my windowsill, burn sage, and play old records on weekends. I cook for myself now, not to impress anyone, not to earn affection, just because it brings me peace. There's still pain, still moments where I look back and wonder why I didn't leave sooner, but there's also laughter and silence that doesn't hurt, and mornings where I wake up and feel light. People ask if I'm dating again. I'm not yet. Right now I'm dating peace, freedom, the version of myself I had to bury to fit into someone else's life. And let me tell you, she's a damn good time. Final thought. When people say karma will handle it, they're usually imagining some big cosmic explosion, like lightning strikes or broken hearts in real time. But real karma? It's slower than that. It shows up in your mailbox as divorce papers. It shows up in silence when you finally stop replying. It shows up in your peace and their confusion. I don't hate Darren. I don't even think about him much. But sometimes, when I sip coffee on my little balcony, I smile, just a little, imagining him trying to explain to someone why he lost everything, and knowing deep down, it wasn't because I was the wrong woman. It was because he bet against the right one and lost. Story 3. My name's Riley Carter, and this is the story of how I built a multi-million-dollar software company from the ashes of my dad's failing computer shop, only to be tossed aside like I was nothing. Spoiler alert, I didn't stay down for long. Let's rewind a bit. Back in the day, our family business was this barely surviving tech repair shop crammed between a vape store and a laundromat. My dad, Alan, started it in the early 2000s. It was his pride, even though it was bleeding money by the time I hit college. Still, he kept showing up every day, fixing old desktops for people who didn't believe in cloud storage. Then there was my older brother, Blake, the golden boy. Straight A's, top-tier business school, leadership awards, the full LinkedIn influencer starter pack. He was Dad's favourite. No competition. Meanwhile, the first stayed behind. Studied computer science at the local university, helped at the shop on weekends, and kept my head down. "You're wasting your brain here," Blake would say every time he flew in from wherever he was consulting. "You could do way better than this place, maybe." But I saw something he didn't, potential. Not just in the shop, but in what we could become. By my senior year, I'd built a basic inventory tool, nothing fancy, just something to help small businesses track parts and manage service tickets. Dad wasn't impressed at first, but then we sold 5 licenses in a week, and 10 the next. One day he handed me a greasy sandwich and said, "You might be onto something here, kid." That one sentence? It kept me going through a lot more than it should have. For the next 5 years, I was all in. 14-hour days. No weekends. Just me, a laptop, and an endless stream of bugs to fix and features to build. We started evolving repair shop to tech firm. Local clients turned into regional ones. I hired our first developer, then a second, then a UX designer who brought us into the modern age. By the time we crossed $1 million in annual revenue, things were finally looking up. And that's when Blake showed up again like clockwork. At a family dinner, he dropped the news like a champagne cork. "I've decided to come back and help run the company." I swear I almost choked on my pasta. "Your background in tech is cute," he said with a smile that made my skin itch. "But I think what you've built needs real strategy now." Dad lit up like it was Christmas morning. "That's amazing, son. This is what we've needed." And just like that, Blake was named co-CEO. He'd never written a single line of code. Didn't know the difference between RAM and ROM. But he had an MBA, a wardrobe full of power suits, and apparently that was enough. At first, we split responsibilities. I ran product development and operations. He handled branding and investor relations. We hit $20 million, then $40. But the power shift wasn't subtle. Blake became the visionary overnight. Magazines ran stories about our dynamic leadership duo, which really meant him talking while I worked. He gave interviews about our innovations, without mentioning that those innovations came from the sleepless nights I put in. Then came the meetings I wasn't invited to, decisions made without me, strategic pivots that I'd learn about from staff instead of the boardroom. By the time our revenue hit $50 million, I wasn't just being sidelined, I was being erased. Then came Dad's 60th birthday party. Blake rented out this absurd ballroom, downtown crystal chandeliers, valet parking, $300 centerpieces, the guest list, all our biggest partners, investors, and clients. But let's be honest, it wasn't a birthday party, it was a corporate stunt disguised as one. I showed up in a simple black dress. Blake immediately scowled. "Couldn't you have put in a little more effort?" he muttered. "These are key people." I brushed past him and started greeting guests. Dinner came and went. I thought maybe I'd survive the night without incident. Then Blake tapped his wineglass. "I have a special announcement," he said, smiling that smug, rehearsed smile. "As we celebrate Dad's incredible legacy, it's time for a new chapter at Carter Systems." My stomach dropped. The board has voted. Effective immediately, I'll be taking over as sole CEO. I froze. My fork hovered midair. "For too long, we've been held back by outdated practices and resistance to change," he continued, eyes locking on mine. "It's time to streamline leadership and focus on forward-thinking vision." Translation. "Riley, you're out." He wasn't done. Riley has done an adequate job maintaining our legacy systems, he said, like I was some retired janitor. But the future requires a level of business excellence she simply doesn't possess. I turned to Dad, waiting for him to say something. Anything. He just nodded, smiling. My mother wouldn't meet my eyes. Her fingers trembled around her wineglass. I stood slowly. The room was silent. Some looked away. Some looked amused. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I just pulled a small box from my bag, walked to Dad's table and set it in front of him. "Happy birthday," I said quietly. Then I left. That night, I sat in my apartment, staring at the walls. Around me were shelves of awards, patents, and the servers that ran the software Blake pretended to create. I replayed the scene again and again. But here's what they forgot. I'm not just a coder. I'm not just a sidekick. I'm the architect of their entire empire. And I had one hell of a surprise waiting for them. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because I was devastated, but because I was busy planning. By 3 a.m., I had sent an email to every single client, partner, and employee we'd ever worked with. Just a short message letting them know about the leadership changes. No drama, no whining, just the facts. And then a simple note at the end, if you'd like to continue working with me directly, I'll be announcing next steps very soon. I got up early the next morning, dressed in my usual jeans and a grey hoodie. No makeup, no blazer, just me. I got to the office before anyone else. I brewed a pot of coffee, opened the blinds, pulled up some files on the conference room screen. At 9:00 sharp, in walked Blake and Dad, both looking smug, like they'd just returned from conquering Rome. Blake spotted me and stopped cold. "What are you doing here?" he said, voice tight. "I assumed after last night you'd have the self-respect to stay away." I took a sip of coffee and smiled. "I'm just wrapping up a few things." "But since you're here, we should probably talk. There's nothing to discuss." Dad cut in. The board voted. "Blake is CEO now. We're moving forward." I nodded. "Cool." let's talk about that board vote for a second. I picked up my tablet and tapped the screen. The projector lit up behind me with a scanned document. You remember when we incorporated 10 years ago? I said. Dad, you gave Blake and me each 25% of the company. You kept 50% for yourself. He nodded. And, well, I continued, 3 years ago, we needed funding for that major client onboarding push. You didn't want to go through banks, so you sold me 6% of your shares quick and clean. Remember? Blake's eyes narrowed. Dad blinked. I mean, yeah, but that was nothing. It gave me 51%, I said, still smiling. Majority ownership. Dead silence. Blake turned to Dad. You didn't read the agreement. Dad's face was turning pale. You didn't think I'd use it, I finished for him. You were too busy flying out for Blake's speaking event in Boston. So you signed. More silence. Then I pulled up a second document. And here's another fun detail. The software that brings in 80% of Carter Systems' revenue. It's not technically owned by the company. Blake's jaw tightened. What do you mean? I said, clicking again. It's owned by a separate company, my company. Archer Logic, LLC Carter Systems, just has a licensing agreement that expired at 9:00 a.m. this morning. I looked at the clock, 9:08. Dad slumped into a chair. The renewal forms, I gave them to you last week. You said you'd get to it after the party. I leaned on the table, calm but direct. You never got to it. Blake looked like he'd just swallowed a whole lemon. You can't do this. I raised an eyebrow. Do what? Enforce contract law? Then I pulled up my inbox lined with responses from our biggest clients. Last night, while you were giving your little takeover speech, I let our clients know I was stepping away. Do you know how many of them responded, asking to follow me to whatever I do next? I turned the screen so they could read the names. Fortune 500s, government contractors, SaaS giants. And another fun thing I added, most of our senior engineers, they're not Carter Systems employees. They're contracted through Archer Logic. I sent them an offer last night. Dad was shaking now. Blake was trying to text someone, probably our legal counsel. I stood up slowly. So here's the deal. You have two options. I walked to the window, looked out over the skyline. I'd stared out that same view so many nights, wondering if this business would survive. Now it was mine to burn or rebuild. Option 1, I said, turning back to them. I walk. I take my shares, my software, my people, and I build something new. Carter Systems becomes a hollow brand with no product, no clients, and no developers. Dad exhaled like he'd just been punched. Option 2, I said, keeping eye contact. You both resign. I take full operational control. You keep your shares but have no say in anything. Blake gets a nice severance package and a letter of recommendation. You get to save the company. Blake exploded. This is blackmail. No, I said, voice steady. This is the consequence of trying to humiliate someone who actually built the thing you're trying to steal. Dad looked down, defeated. Blake stared at me like I was a stranger. You planned this, he said, seething. You were waiting for the right moment to screw us over. I shook my head. No, I spent 10 years trying to be a good daughter, a good sister. And last night, you called me worthless. In front of 300 people. I checked my watch. Clients are jumping ship. Developers are logging into new Slack channels. You've got about an hour before the damage becomes irreversible. Silence. I sat back down. Dad finally spoke, his voice small. What happens if we agree? I keep the company alive. You both get a quiet, clean exit. No scandal, no lawsuits. And someday, if you're lucky, I might even invite you to see what we've built. That meeting ended with 2 sets of signatures and one very long silence. By noon, the lawyers had filed everything. Blake cleared out his corner office the same afternoon. No dramatic speech. No shouting. Just him stuffing branded notebooks into a box. Jaw clenched so tight I thought it might snap. Dad didn't say much either. He just looked tired, like he'd aged a decade in a day. When he left the office, he didn't even take his nameplate. And me? I sat in that glass-walled room with the skyline behind me, watching everyone walk past with nervous glances. I was the storm no one saw coming. But inside, I wasn't celebrating. I wasn't even angry anymore, just quiet. Because yes, I won. I saved the company. I reclaimed what was mine. But I also lost something along the way, something I'm still not sure how to name. That night, my mum showed up at my apartment. She was holding a bag of takeout and a stack of old photo albums. She sat across from me, silent for a minute. Then she asked, "Did it really have to end like this?" I wanted to say no, that we could have done it differently. But that would have been a lie. "They made their choice," I said gently. "They were willing to throw me away for a photo op and a press quote." She nodded. "I know. I just hoped it wouldn't come to this." I opened one of the albums. There I was, 5 years old, holding a toy keyboard, wide-eyed and smiling. Before any of this, before ambition turned into blood sport. "Mom," I said, not looking up, I gave them everything. And when they thought I had nothing left to give, they tried to erase me. She didn't argue. She just reached across the table and held my hand. "I'm proud of you," she said. 2 weeks later, we relaunched under a new brand, Carter Logic. Still a nod to the family name, but this time with a clear signal. Things had changed. We rolled out 2 new products, that quarter tools I'd been building quietly in the background, waiting for the right moment. We signed 3 new clients before the month ended. By the end of the year, revenue had tripled. Somewhere in Silicon Valley, Blake got a job with a small firm. He pops up in my LinkedIn suggestions every now and then, still using buzzwords like synergy and thought leadership. Sometimes I wonder if he's learned anything. Sometimes I don't care. Dad officially retired and moved to a cabin in the mountains. We talk on holidays now. Small talk, weather, football, stuff like that. The deeper conversations haven't happened yet. Might never happen. I'm okay with that. Healing doesn't always come with closure. Sometimes it just means letting go of the version of someone you used to need them to be. There's one thing I still haven't done. That birthday present I left at Dad's table, I kept it. It's sitting on a shelf in my home office, still wrapped, still sealed. Inside is a leather-bound photo album, not of vacations or birthdays, but of the company's journey. Every version of our software, every press clipping. Photos from the first cramped office we rented above a bakery. I made it for him before everything went down. I thought he'd be proud. Now, I'm saving it for the day he finally sees what I built for what it really is. Maybe he never will, but I will. That's enough. These days, I spend more time mentoring young developers, especially women who remind me of who I used to be. Smart, quiet, overlooked. I tell them what no one ever told me. You don't have to scream to be powerful. You just have to know your worth and act like it's non-negotiable. Last month, I got an email from Blake's old business school. They asked me to speak at their graduation ceremony. The topic? Leading with resilience, building when they tell you you're not enough. I said yes, not out of spite, not for revenge, but because I want those students to know what I wish someone had told me when I was sitting in their place. That sometimes the world won't see your value until you walk away and build something so undeniable they can't ignore you anymore. And the ones who tried to break you, they'll end up being footnotes in your story. I still work late sometimes, still pull 10-hour stretches when we're on deadline, but now I take breaks. I have a life. I surround myself with people who respect me, not just need me. And on the rare nights when I look at that old wrapped gift, I remind myself the real revenge is peace. It's waking up every day knowing that no one can steal what you've built with your own hands and your own heart. So yeah, they thought they buried me. But really, I was just planting roots,